The first step towards controlling atomic energy came at the end of 1938, when Otto Hahn and Fritz Strassmann discovered nuclear fission, which was the act of splitting atoms so that they would release large amounts of energy. This made nuclear weaponry possible, and in a letter to President Franklin D. Roosevelt, Leo Szilard and Albert Einstein warned of that possibility that atomic bombs were being developed in Germany. World War II began not long after, and by December, the U.S. was officially equipped with a Committee for Uranium Research. Once the United States had joined the war, the need for advanced weapons was apparent, and in 1942, President Roosevelt approved the commencement of designing and building nuclear bombs. The next step came when Chicago Pile 1, the world's first nuclear reactor, though only an experiment, reached criticality a month after being built at the University of Chicago. A reactor works by initializing a chain reaction of atoms splitting, and a reactor reaches criticality when it is able to produce the reaction without any intervention from external sources. As mentioned earlier, splitting an atom releases a burst of energy, and this experimental reactor was the first attempt at controlling that energy. In that same year, there was yet another scientific breakthrough when Glenn Seaborg discovered plutonium, a man-made element that would later be used for one of the bombs. The Manhattan Engineer District, namesake of the Manhattan Project, was formed on June 6, 1942, with Brigadier General Leslie R. Groves as the head. Groves would also be the one to approve the three main sites used for the project, starting with Oak Ridge, Tennessee, then Los Alamos, New Mexico, and finally Hanford, Washington. Oak Ridge was the location of a nuclear reactor intended for uranium enrichment, Los Alamos was for designing and constructing the bombs, and Hanford was the location of a reactor that was used for manufacturing plutonium. When President Roosevelt died in April of 1945, the Manhattan Project was handed off to his vice president and successor, Harry Truman, who was not aware of its existence until right when he was bestowed the power to change history by deciding whether or not to use the atomic bombs. Germany surrendered in the next month after that, but the conflict was far from over. The use of nuclear weapons was secured as a possibility when the Gadget, an experimental nuclear bomb, successfully detonated over the Trinity test site in New Mexico. The powerful asset of nuclear bombs brought a new way to get Japan to surrender. So, on July 26th, President Truman sent out the Potsdam Declaration, in which he warned Japan that they would face devastating consequences if they did not surrender. There was no surrender, so on August 6th, the first bomb was dropped, with the second one following 3 days later. Eventually, Japan announced a plan to surrender, and did so a few weeks later, officially putting an end to the war.